Excellent. Well, since we are running late, my name is Dejan Gakovic. I'm with Underwriter Laboratories, UL Solutions. I'll be talking today to you about the compliance criteria for modular data centers. Modular data centers are here. They've been here for a while. You guys are designing the equipment to go inside. Some of you don't understand what else is required in regards to either legal requirement or code requirements to actually employ a modular data center. What I'm going to be talking today only pertains to the United States. I'm not an expert on other various markets. I can only talk about a National Electric Code requirements that pertains to the United States of America. Well, thank you, whoever said very nice outside. What is a modular data center? We heard many definitions today alone in the last hour and a half of what is a modular data center. What you have on the screen is an exact definition from the National Electric Code, Article 646.2, which states, prefabricated units rated 1,000 volts or less, consisting of an outer enclosure housing multiple racks of cabinets of information technology equipment, IT, example servers, and various support equipment such as electrical service and distribution equipment, HVAC systems, and the like. MDC can be indoor or outdoor, can be all-in-one system, or a system of multiple units. This is a quote directly taken from the Article 646.2, and I think as an OCP we have to recognize that different jurisdictions might have a different definitions. What is an MDC? What MDC is not, it's not a micro data center, although it could be considered, but definition says modular, and is definitely not a mobile. Once a week I get a call, it says, I just bought a mobile data center from China. I need it certified. It's not mobile. It's a modular data center. Codes. In the United States, we are governed by codes and regulations. And what is a code? Set of rules that serve as an accepted guidelines recommended for industry and or regions, could be both, to follow primarily for a purpose of safety, quality, or other benefits. Codes in the United States are pretty much national electric codes governed by NFPA, National Fire Protection Associations. Codes are not law by itself, but they could be adopted into laws in the United States. And I have to advise you that all US states have adopted the National Electric Code, therefore essentially making it a law. So if you're deploying modular data centers, you have to be concerned about compliance with the National Electric Code. To make it more complex, each city, each county, each state can put more severe requirements above the NEC. NEC, the National Electric Code, is a minimum requirement. Chicago, New York, LA, Arizona, Arkansas have different requirements. They go way above the requirements of the NEC. And this is very important when you're deploying them, when you're designing an MDC, to consult with authorities in the areas where you're deploying them. Because deploying them in Wyoming, it's not the same as in Chicago. And typically MDCs are not employed in the rural areas. Majority of them are in the very urban areas. Encroaching on edge, right? What are standards? Standards are published requirements that provides the process and methods of complying with the code. So all heard about UL standards. If you're not, you'll hear today plenty about the UL standards. Just as a note, National Electrical Code course is about between 20 and 40 hours, depending on how quickly you can read and absorb the knowledge and have a pre-existing knowledge of the standards. I got 15 minutes. So I'm going to jump straight into Article 646 of the National Electric Code, which is NFPA 70. Again, National Fire Protection Association governs the code. Article 646 covers modular data centers, strictly modular data centers. As I said, the definition is 646.2. Similarly, with other articles of the National Electric Code, it provides a minimum requirements. As I said, other authorities, local governments, and state governments can impose stricter rules for deployment of modular data centers. This article contains specific requirements and identifies all other areas in the NEC that apply to MDCs. Article 646.4 states, and you can read it there, that all MDCs shall be listed and labeled and comply with 646 and 646.5 through 9, or comply with this article. So just to take it off the board, your MDC does not have to be listed by any NRTL as long as you comply with all of those articles. So it doesn't have to be listed, but the path to compliance is a lot harder if it's not. These are the sections of the Article 646 that only pertain to the equipment that's in an MDC. So as you can see from 10, from electrical supply, distribution transformer, receptacles, installation and use, illumination, emergency lighting, all that stuff, including the entrance and egress to MDCs, are governed by the National Electric Code, Article 646. And each of these sections will point to the other section of the MDCs. So one thing that I didn't say before when we talked about a definition, National Electric Code considers modular data centers as structures. Very similarly to your brick and mortar structures. They are structures, they are fixed structures, they're not movable. Once they're installed, they're permanent. And decommissioning is a long process. It's not something that you can bring a truck and lift it up. Therefore, all these sections will refer to the other sections of the NEC code, and you have to comply with all of them. I have highlighted there 646.13 other electrical equipment, because there's another quote out of the code that says electrical equipment that is an integral part of the modular data center, including information technology equipment, lighting, control, power, HVAC, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, emergency lighting, alarm circuits, and so forth, shall comply with the requirements for its use and installation and shall be listed and labeled. This is straight from the code. Whatever you're putting in your MDC has to be listed and labeled. How many of you guys understand what listed means? Come on, show of hands. Okay. Listed means it's certified by a third party and it's listed as a certified equipment. That's why it's the word listed. You can search publicly available database. UL's Product IQ contains every single product that was ever certified by UL, and it still has the certification. If it was withdrawn, it was removed. But it means to be listed. It doesn't say UL listed, doesn't say Intertech, TÜV Süd, TÜV Rheinland, CSA, and the other companies. It just says listed. And there's a list of agencies that can do the listing. UL is one of them, and we are very proud that we are the one that started it all. ITE equipment shall be listed to UL 62368-1 standard, audio, video, information, and communication technology equipment, or UL 60950, and I'll stop there. UL 60950 is an obsolete standard. No new equipment can be listed to that standard. The NEC code is dated 2020. That's why it contains the reference to 60950. But any new equipment is 62368. And if you have ever sit on any of the immersion cooling presentations, we talked about UL or IEC 62368-1 a lot. But 60950 still exists there. Installation and use. I purposely pulled it out of the list because listed and labeled equipment shall be installed and used in accordance with any instructions or informations included in the listing. Many of you are manufacturers of equipment that actually gets installed in the rack. And I can guarantee you that every single one of you have an example that equipment was not installed properly. That's why it's in a code. Any equipment installed in that rack in the MDC has to be installed in accordance with the manufacturer specification and what is specified in the listing of that equipment. Certifications of MDCs. As I said, MDCs do not have to be certified as long as you comply with every single section of Article 646 and associated articles of the NEC code. However, certifying an MDC to UL 2755 provides assurance that the equipment complies with applicable requirements prior to leaving the manufacturing facility. We know that they're prefabricated. Many of them are pre-populated. Yes, sir, 2 minutes, thank you. UL 2755 allows for investigation of both the underlying subsystem and overall MDC. As I mentioned, MDC could be all in one or could be a system of multiple units. Consequently, UL certified MDCs primarily only need to be evaluated for proper installation at the site of deployment, because you have to bring the supply, you have to ground the equipment properly, you have to have a proper footing or for the installation of your unit, because your unit could be 20 foot, 40 foot, 50,000 pounds, or so on. Actually, 40,000 pounds, I believe, the ISO container. This is important because they're prefabricated. So if you have a certified equipment, certified MDC, it's much easier to deploy because you don't have to prove to anybody that you comply with all the articles of National Electric Code. These are the critical standards that are in your MDC. Obviously, the system is UL 2755, an outline of investigation. Your components, obviously 62368, as I said, it's IT. Then you have panel boards and switch boards, ventilation and air conditioning. As you remember, that Article 646.13 says everything has to be listed and labeled. These are the standards for all that other equipment that is in the MDC. UPSs and backup battery system, UL 1771, UL 1973. What you that are not from the United States are probably noticing that there's only UL 62368 that resemble an IEC standard. Everything else is US specific. So you have to, if you're sourcing a UPSs from a supplier that is in Europe and they have a certification through the EN standard, make sure you tell them we need certification from the United States as well. So compliance approach. How can you comply? Well, there are 3 approaches. And all 3 starts with a very simple process, code review of system design. This can be done remotely. Code review. We're just reviewing the code and your system design, and we are telling you yes or no, you're not meeting the code here, you're meeting it there. From there, you can move to preliminary design review, where we provide you preliminary on-site review, and we tell you what the gap is through compliance, and we have a final system certification. That's one path that gets you the UL mark. And I'm almost done, Matt. The second part is field evaluation. What's a field evaluation? If you have a system that's already deployed, we can come in on site, we can do evaluation on that installation site, and you'll meet the requirements. And the third one is inspection certificate per manufacturing unit. If the units are still in a factory, we can come in, we'll inspect the units, and we'll provide you inspection certificate that you can then show to the code authorities at the installation site. So call to action, Continue our collaboration and knowledge sharing with the MDC project community, which is very important, and code and compliance related matters. Consideration for OCP program for compliance. And please participate in the MDC project community. As in previous presentation, please participate, be active. We need to hear your voice. We need to hear your experiences, not necessarily just in the United States, but all around the world. Because OCP, we are global. So with that being said, thank you very much. I know I rushed, but might go over the time. But any questions on MDCs or compliance criteria?
Please talk to Dejan offline.
Yes. And I will have another presentation in 15 minutes on other NEC codes, so that will be more in detail. So if you want to learn more, please stay. Thank you.